Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one Adam Ship, my money share, as we have now completed 1 week of NBA basketball brought to you by the Association. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing good. Nice to be back in the swing of things with basketball. Pretty decent first week, I think. Hopefully it keeps going well. So I'm excited to do this for the next 5 or 6 months.
Yep, I think there's about 160 days left, so here we go. And away we go, as Dan Strafford would say. But in any event, this is the Early Bird Podcast. We are brought to you by Yahoo. They are the presenting sponsor. If you've not yet signed up for Yahoo, go to any of the cash building block articles or the NFL primetime articles. Those are free article series. Up there in the third or fourth paragraph, you will see the instructions, promo code, and link to get into Yahoo. Deposit up to $30 and they will match that in YSRPs. That is Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which are just as good as cash. How was that for a radio voice, Adam?
Killed it.
All right. Well, we have a 3-game slate here for Tuesday. We have the World Series also reconvening. That will be Game 6 in Houston. It will be looks like Steven Strasburg taking on Justin Verlander. We've got our Tuesday slate starting at 7:30, and there is a robust hockey slate starting at 7. So we have you covered from all aspects here at awesemo.com. Starting off, Adam, we'll just go game by game here since there are just 6 teams in action. Quickly looking at the slate, you've got Atlanta at Miami. Miami's favored by 8 at home. They should be getting Jimmy Butler back. Dallas is at Denver. Denver is on the back-to-back. They are favored at home by 6. And then you have Memphis at LA. Lakers are favored by 12. Interested to get your thoughts on the bigs there for the Lakers with regards to health news. As I mentioned, Jimmy Butler will be back in action, or actually will be making his debut for Miami. You've got Dwight Powell, who's dealing with a sore hamstring. Rajon Rondo, questionable, though unlikely to play with a calf strain. He got an MRI on that this weekend, and they think he's going to be out for several more days. And then you have Kyle Anderson, who is also dealing with a sore calf. Other than that, everybody looks good to go. So we've got Atlanta and Miami. Start us off here with one of your faves, Trae Young.
He's been great. He's having another nice game against Philadelphia right now on Monday night. It's really interesting with him because he's obviously playing out of his mind, and we know how high his ceiling is because, he's a 30+% usage guy. Last year he had an assist percentage up around 40%, and he's at the same point this year. The interesting thing is that, his price tag obviously is coming up, and he's with the rising price tag on him. I think that the best approach is to kind of be doing the opposite of the field. And with this being a 3-game slate, I think there's a good chance that you see pretty high ownership on him. The reason I think that is he's shooting out of his mind right now, which obviously he's capable of doing, but 53.5% true shooting percentage last year. Going into Monday's game, he was at about 72% this season. Even if you assume he's going to improve in his second year, he's still not going to shoot this well or even close to it. And him shooting this well is causing the price tag to rise and his ownership to increase. So again, there's no question of his ceiling, but whenever you have someone out shooting their actual abilities and ownership starts to catch up, then I think you start looking for pivots. So I do really like Trae Young, but if his ownership's high, I'm fine going somewhere else.
All right, moving on down the list here, we've got, I don't want that by position. Let's go by team. We've got John Collins here, who has been solid thus far this season. He's averaging a double-double of 13.5 points, 11 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, and an assist. He is averaging 32 minutes per game and 35 fantasy points per game. Not overly inspiring, but he does get a matchup here against Miami, who is playing much quicker. It'll be interesting to see how they work in Jimmy Butler. We'll talk about that. And I say work in Jimmy Butler because their young guys have been getting a ton of minutes and been rather successful, or surprisingly better than average. We've got Alex Len, always an issue here with foul trouble. Looks like he's going to more or less just be a rotation guy at this point, Adam. It's hard to see him getting more than 20-25 minutes. And then we're down to a bunch of wings and guards. Kevin Huerter still on, I believe, on his limited minutes. Jabari Parker is at a nice price point, but he's mostly a scorer rather than do much of anything else. And then you've got the DeAndres and Cam Reddish, who aren't really awe-inspiring either. What do you like here? Let's start off with Collins first, and then take it away with the remainder of the Hawks.
Yeah, Collins is obviously the second most appealing Hawks player behind Trae Young. I think that one thing that stands out though is that he's $1,700 less expensive on DraftKings, and he's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. In terms of per minute production, they're very similar players. Young obviously has a monster ceiling, but so does Collins. And I think that when you have that pricing discrepancy, maybe you'll see, and again, maybe some inflated ownership on Young. Collins is someone you can go to from this team that is more affordable and I think at a more favorable price point.
All right. Anybody at all popping for you amongst Parker, Hunter, Bembry, Reddish, Evan Turner?
Not really, just kind of guys rotating through.
All right, then let's get on over here to Miami. A couple more items of note. Kelly Olynyk dealing with a quad bruise, expected to play. Udonis Haslem has not played yet this season. I wanted to see where... I was trying to see... I'll look that up. I want to see how many games he's actually played over the last few years. He's just getting the back end of the taking the hometown discount for quite a few years during the LeBron era. And just keep cashing them checks, as they like to say, Udonis. Donald Jones should be out. He is dealing with a sore groin. And then there was one other guy. Oh, yes. James Johnson. Not in shape. Adam. Not in shape. I mentioned it earlier. He just could not put the ice cream down over the offseason. That's fine because we've got... Oh, and Dion Waiters out because he's crazy. We have a whole bunch of young guys here with a big surprise. Kendrick Nunn coming on like gangbusters. We've got Justice Winslow picking up some additional ball handling duties. Bam Adebayo has been a per minute monster. And Tyler Hero has been absolutely solid as well. He has played 35, 32, and 34 minutes. And now we got Jimmy Butler coming in. How is this going to upset the apple cart in your estimation?
It'll probably throw pretty much everything off. You potentially lose minutes for Kendrick Nunn. Even if not, you almost certainly lose usage there. Tyler Hero should certainly lose usage as well. It kind of just flattens everyone out. And the problem is that you have some elevated price points because of what was happening without Butler. Kendrick Nunn specifically at $6,000. It's not that that's a really expensive salary. It's just probably more than he's going to be worth over the course of the season when Jimmy Butler's playing.
All right, I'm getting the Udonis.
Justice Winslow also at an elevated price tag now.
All right. Over the last 3 seasons, Haslem has played in 40 games. He has made 1 start.
Yeah, he's kind of just the team cheerleader.
In the last 4 seasons, he has not quite played in 80 games. He has made 1 start. I can go on, but I'm not going to. Again, hey, he was there in Florida once upon a time, and he was there at a discount in the Miami heyday years, and not a horrible player. So again, keep going. Zero problem with that. Looking at the guys, Goran Dragic is someone who is going to be interesting. What have you seen when you've looked at his rotation and how they're utilizing him this year?
So in some part it could be thrown off by Butler, but I expect around 26 minutes from Dragic.
Okay, and then is he someone that you would consider here at 5,700 on DraftKings? It feels like a relatively safe price point. We only have 6 teams in action. We know he's going to get usage. I would suspect either he or Butler will probably be on the floor most of the time, or he should get a decent amount of minutes without Butler, I guess is a different way of saying that. Does that help you in the estimation? Because we know he's good. And he has these amazing games every now and then just goes forever without them. I think he's going to be well suited to playing, 20, 24 to 28 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's where he's at. And he's coming off the bench, so the usage should be there, which is really nice. I do think he's a good play at 5,700.
All right. Anything else you want to mention here? Kelly Olynyk, Myers Leonard, Bam Adebayo, perhaps?
Bam at 7K on DraftKings with power forward eligibility is decent. It's a pretty nice front court for him to go up against. He shouldn't lose too much usage to Jimmy Butler because he's not a high usage guy anyway. So I think that Bam, Butler, and Dragic are probably my 3 favorite Miami plays.
All right, let's head on over here to Dallas. Of course, you'll get a chance here to talk about Luka Doncic momentarily. Dwight Powell is, I mentioned earlier, still dealing with the hamstring injury, gone through a full practice. Still is unlikely to play on Tuesday. They have not yet ruled him out, but they don't think he's going to come back in this one. Let's just assume he's not going to play. We've got one of your other favorite guys, Luka Doncic. We've got the unicorn, Kristaps Porzingis. We've got redundancy abounding with Wright, with Brunson, Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Seth Curry. Everybody there on the wings. Courtney Lee did not play in the last game after starting, so perhaps they've realized he is washed. Let's start off with the good stuff. Luka and Porzingis.
Yeah, that's I think where we can kind of start and finish with Dallas, especially.
We need some cannon fodder, Adam. We have to fill out a whole roster here.
Yeah, I mean, especially if Dwight Powell's back, he's questionable for this game. But if he's back, that should eat into Maxi Kleber's playing time, and that would be like Kleber's like the third guy on the team that I'm interested in because he's still really cheap. But Luka obviously is phenomenal. Triple double threat every time he takes the floor, and he's playing big minutes. He's still affordable, so really, really like him. Porzingis, we saw 34 minutes last game, which was good to see after he had kind of been in line to play around 30 a night for the first couple games with Dallas. So both of those guys, I think, in pretty nice spots and are really good plays.
All right. Again, Adam is correct. It's sort of catch as catch can here with the wings slash guards. You've got DeLon Wright, who and Jalen Brunson and Seth Curry and Dorian Finney-Smith, and their roles are going to depend on what's going on in the game, who starts. Multiple guys have had opportunities to close. It's just kind of been mixing and matching. Plus, we've got the game in Denver at altitude, so we'll have to see how they treat that because everybody's not quite in shape yet per se for the normal season. So there's a lot of question marks here on Dallas. This is where if you're mass multi-entering, you may want to utilize some sort of limiter on how many of that passel of players get into your lineup. Just letting you have a moment here, Adam, because you get a third favorite player to talk about, Nikolai Jokic. He's been outstanding, or at least in the last game, 8 of 18. The first game he was 8 of 14. We like to see him taking shots like that. Getting to the line, triple-double in the last game, 14 and 13 rebounds in the 2 games he's played. 4 fouls in each one. Now, we know sometimes that can be an issue, but he did have to play 41 minutes to eke out that win there in Phoenix. I like him again against Dallas here. Is he your top raw points scorer on the night, or is that going to go to one of the LA guys?
Yeah, it'll go to Anthony Davis.
Okay.
But Jokic, certainly in the conversation. I think, between Jokic, Luka, Davis, and LeBron, it's going to be one of those guys. But Jokic is obviously great. Last year, he led the Nuggets in usage percentage, rebound percentage, and assist percentage. Does everything when he's on the floor. He only played 24 minutes in his first game because he picked up 3 fouls in the first 3.5 minutes of the game and sat the entire rest of the first half. Played 36 minutes in regulation against Phoenix. I expect him to play 34 to 36 minutes in most games where he's not in foul trouble or a blowout. Possibly on the 34-minute end with it being the second half of a back-to-back, but who really knows about that? And either way, it's a pretty nice matchup for him, and obviously a great player.
All right, now we get into a bunch of question marks here because we've got the addition of Jeremy Grant, which really adds yet another multi-position eligible guy. Well, I don't want to say multi-position eligible, somebody that can play multiple positions in real basketball into the mix here. That's kind of cramping the style there for Morris. Beasley's still going to be gunning. Plumlee still gets some backup bigs minutes. Paul Millsap just doing a little bit of everything, kind of letting the game come to him. Not very exciting, but only 5,400. And then you've got Jamal Murray, who he needs to get his shots, and he's done all right with that the first 2 games. 14 in the first one, 19 in 41 minutes in that overtime game. He's been to the line 15 times already this season. He is someone who's relatively solid at 6,600. I think he's going to be a large part of our plans. But would you consider him? Do you consider Gary Harris, Will Barton, or is this just kind of like the Denver side of things, just a big grab bag of people to mix and match?
Yeah, it's similar to the Dallas side. The difference is that the Denver side actually has good basketball players on it. Better than DeLon Wright and Jalen Brunson and those guys.
Who has the better coach, Dallas or Denver?
Denver.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Jamal Murray obviously can light it up. He's probably correctly priced for his medium projection, but his ceiling is really high. So I think he's a good tournament option. Gary Harris is cheap. Will Barton's cheap. You can take shots on those guys in large field tournaments where you're trying to get a stars and scrubs lineup to maximize your ceiling. You can take a shot on $3,300 Malik Beasley. Recording this before Denver's Monday night game, so they played 2 games this season. In the most recent one, the one against Phoenix, we saw Beasley actually in the closing lineup, played 24 minutes in regulation. So he at least has that in his range of outcomes, which is appealing on a 3-game slate at $3,300.
Yeah, absolutely there. And I mean, Dallas, I guess they're kind of built to go small, right? I mean, with especially if Powell's still out, they're going to run Porzingis or Kleber at the 5, so that's not exactly imposing there. So I think that helps out some of the more wing type players, guard type players there for Denver if everybody just bumps down a position. Moving on to the final game of the night of our 3. This is the 10:30 game going off 90 minutes after the Dallas-Detroit game. The injury, let me get over here, the injury question marks we have. Ja Morant is probable. He has been dealing with a sore ankle but is expected to play. Andre Iguodala and Josh Jackson have not reported it to the team after being traded there in the offseason. And then we've got slow-mo. Kyle Anderson is dealing with a sore calf. He is questionable, though they say leaning towards probable. So we will have to see what shakes out there. He did play 24 minutes on Sunday in that overtime game against Brooklyn. I don't know that I have a favorite play from here, Adam. The guy that'll probably make more of my lineups than anybody else is going to be Jay Crowder. What do you have for us from Memphis?
Their prices all came up from their last game. Ja Morant has looked really, really good. The issue is that, maybe not playing a ton of minutes, but I think that he's a reasonable tournament option. Jaren Jackson is obviously really productive when he's on the floor, and you don't want to try and predict foul trouble because you really can't do it. But this is a guy that fouls constantly, and now he's going up against Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Not the spot that you would expect him to stay out of foul trouble. That doesn't mean that you can't roster him in tournaments, just that there is massive risk here. Jonas Valanciunas is coming off a monster game, but again, probably only playing about 20 minutes on his minutes limit. I agree with you that Crowder is reasonable, but his price tag jumped $800 on DraftKings since his last game. The one guy that still really stands out to me at their price point is Dylan Brooks, $4,100. He shoots, he plays 30 plus minutes. He's not a great basketball player, but he gets opportunities on this team. Looking at his 3 games so far, he took 7 shots in 18 minutes in the first game, but then 12 field goal attempts in 30 minutes against Chicago, 15 field goal attempts in 38 minutes last game against Brooklyn, a game that went to overtime. He doesn't contribute much in the way of peripherals, but he's only 4,100. It's only a 3-game slate, and he's not afraid to shoot the ball, which is nice.
True or false? Jonas Valanciunas has not played a single minute in the fourth quarter yet this season.
Probably true.
True, it is. He dropped that, laid down a monster, to borrow from KGB, Teddy KGB there. That was not a good impersonation. 20 minutes, and he dropped 45 fantasy points. That was pretty smooth. He's doubled in the last 2 games, averaging 19 minutes per game. His price has ticked up there a little bit, but we know there could be reasonable guys for him to square off against in JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. Let's start there first, Adam. I had completely waved those guys off just after being completely frustrated. McGee, that probably makes sense, but he's 3,800 on DraftKings. Dwight Howard is 5,000. He made all of his shots, 8 for 8 from the field. He had 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, played 23 minutes, put down 39 fantasy points. I he and JaVale are going to split the minutes, and then Anthony Davis is going to pick up a few. But I think this is a game where Anthony Davis gets to stay at the 4 more often than moving to the 5 until maybe a little bit in the fourth quarter. What do you like here from these craptastic retreads in Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee?
In general, just play whichever of them's lower owned and or cheaper. In this case, you have on DraftKings a $1,200 price difference between Howard and McGee. There's not really a way to predict which of them, if either, are going to have a big game any given night. But they both are capable of it. They're both, one to more than one fantasy point per minute guys. It's just a matter of how the game flow goes and who's playing really well. For example, if McGee were playing the way that Howard played against the Hornets, he probably plays more than, 16 minutes and Howard plays less than 23. So I'd give the preference to McGee just because he's cheaper.
All right. Talk about Anthony Davis and LeBron James, point guard LeBron James, that is.
Both still really good plays. Memphis, not the slow defensive team that they used to be. And both of these guys, Davis and James, are still really cheap. Davis obviously is one of the better per minute producers in basketball. He's going to play big minutes, assuming that this game's competitive. You got 32 and a half minutes last game against Charlotte. He sat the last 2 minutes and 20 seconds because of a blowout. Prior to that, you were getting 36, 37 minutes from him. Same goes for LeBron, who played 35 minutes despite sitting the last 2 minutes of the game against the Hornets. So huge minutes for these guys. LeBron's still sub 10K on DraftKings, which is insane. I like them both. I think Davis has the higher ceiling. I think LeBron's the better cash play because he's a little bit cheaper.
All right. Then after that, I guess it's for me, it's probably gonna be Howard or McGee. Though it's even on a 6 teams in our player pool, a little tough to earmark a center spot even on multi-position eligibility sites. Then we're looking at Danny Green. I mentioned that Rajon Rondo most likely will be out. Kyle Kuzma still out. How are you feeling about Danny Green, KCP, Avery Bradley, Quinn Cook, Alex Caruso? Are those guys better or worse on the whole to Denver or Dallas mixed bag parts?
I prefer the Denver guys just because they're more talented.
Okay.
But you should get 26 to 30 minutes apiece from Bradley and from Danny Green. Green's salary's fallen back to 4,400 on DraftKings, which makes him a pretty appealing option. He had gotten up over 5K, which was not great. Avery Bradley at 3,500, less involved than Green is, but still playing similar minutes at a lower price point.
All right. Anything else for this game?
I don't think so.
All right, let's talk a little bit of pricing over here on our sponsor site. We're going to talk, oops, let me set up my filters here. Talk a little bit of Yahoo, see what we've got here. Let's look at the top end first, then I'll mention some of the value plays, see what you like. So you've got Anthony Davis at, it's a $200 budget. Adam, the usual positions. You've got Davis, center only at 54, LeBron, 49, power forward, Jokic 48 at center, Doncic shooting guard at 45, and then Trae Young at 44. Those are your top 5 guys. If you were to kind of rank them, what would you like to do there?
Davis number 1.
And it's 3 points per block and steal, by the way. Here.
Yeah. Davis 1, LeBron, Jokic, Doncic.
And then Young. Okay, so you're going with the pricing here. Now, you have Kristaps Porzingis at 35. How do you feel about him coming at a $10 to $19 discount if we look at Anthony Davis there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good value. I still think that Davis is a little bit better option. You also have Bam Adebayo at only $21, which stands out.
All right. Looking there towards the bottom, we got a few $10 players. We know that Kevin Huerter is probably going to be minutes capped still as he works his way back. But you've got Kelly Olynyk at the minimum. You've got Dylan Brooks at the minimum. And then you've got Jay Crowder at 14 and Kendrick Nunn at 15. Do any of those guys stand out at their respective prices?
Crowder, Nunn. What were the other ones?
Olynyk is at 10 and Brooks is at 10.
I don't think any one of them is like significantly better than the rest.
Okay. Fair enough there. Fair enough. All right. Well, that is your. Oh, and then the last one, Jimmy Butler coming in at 33 in his first game.
Yeah, it's a pretty fair price.
All right. So there we are. A little bit of a shorter podcast here. We do, while NFL is going on, we tend to have the Tuesday, Thursday slates are generally 3 or 4 games. That will branch out, of course, as the NFL season starts to wind down and they are NBA season gets going and they start to stagger people and have a few less 3 and 4s, 4 and 5s, and back to backs like they have agreed to in the player collective bargaining and what we saw last year. So we will work through all of that. But you do get the DFS NBA strategy show that is at 9:30 on Monday through Saturday. You also get the NFL strategy show that is on the Osmo YouTube channel as well. That is 11 o'clock Monday through Saturday. And then you get the deeper dive. That's YouTube channel again in front of the paywall at 5 o'clock. Most days when there's a larger slate, they might start a few minutes early. But if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell, you will know whenever we are going live there. And then, of course, we've got Live Before Lock on Tuesday, so check that out. I'm not sure if this is a Fast Eddie Fear day. They were trying to make sure he's going to be doing Saturdays and Sundays, and then they're trying to get him on some of the larger slates throughout the week. So I'm not sure if this 3-gamer makes the cutoff, but that's okay because we've got Josh Engelman, we've got Chris Randone, and we have Chris Spags that fill in admirably around that. So definitely give that a look. You can follow Adam over there on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EmacDFS. And of course, it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.